arriving in New York in 1991, Coach Pat Riley would build the Knicks into an NBA power. Under the leadership of Riley, New York had become the toughest team in the league. The man who once epitomized showtime and glamour with the Lakers now presided over a gritty group of Knicks, and he would drive them to the brink of a championship, reaching the NBA Finals in 1994.
And they are celebrating here at Madison Square Garden.
But in 1995, Riley suddenly resigned from the Knicks and became head coach of the Miami Heat. His abrupt departure led to bitter feelings in New York.
There were a lot of people that felt that he abandoned the Knicks. A lot of fans said, hey, wait a minute, you came here, you promised us a championship, and you didn't deliver. It made the rivalry really hot. I mean, people were dying for that first game back with Pat Riley sitting at the other end.
Well, now here comes the chant from the crowd here at Madison Square Garden.
He got booed, and he was telling them to let it on out, let it on out. And I think that's where it started.
Riley would transform the Heat into a ferocious, defensive-minded team, just like the one he left behind in New York. And when the two teams met in the '97 playoffs, they seemed to be a mirror image.
Two monsters that he created going at each other. The Hatfields and McCoys. That's pretty much what it is, like a family feud.
The Knicks appeared to have a firm grip on the series, taking a 3-1 lead.
The Knicks were in complete control, and they had shown really that they were the better team. And what really causes the change in momentum in the series, something that has nothing to do with basketball.
Oh, my. Oh, an ugly melee underneath Miami's basket.
The fight broke out, you know, with the bench cleared. Some of us came off the bench, some of us didn't.
Starks was out there, and Larry Johnson. I think everybody was out there. And it led to suspensions.
With several key Knicks suspended, the tide turned as the Heat rallied to win in 7 games, and a rivalry that was simmering had now boiled over.
There was some feeling of injustice, so it all began to plant the seeds for, you know, something that was going to be bigger than it was.
I think the Knicks were so upset at the way the series had finished off and what had transpired, they couldn't wait to play the Heat from the second that final buzzer sounded the next year.
The Knicks would have their chance when they faced the Heat the very next season. And once again, a hard-fought series exploded into a brawl.
And fists are flying at the other end. Larry Johnson and Mourning have at each other.
I remember my first thought was, no, please, not again.
Someone's on the bottom of that pile. Jeff Van Gundy is on the bottom of the pile.
See Jeff. See Jeff, you know, trying to tackle Alonzo, you know, slide down and holding on to his legs for dear life. It's just funny.
You see how he was just dangling on my leg. It was like a piece of gum on my shoe. I just so happened to look down. I'm like, damn. I mean, Van Gundy's on my leg.
Everybody says, well, what was going through your mind? Well, if I would have been thinking, I would never have attacked a 6'9", 270-pound guy. I wouldn't have gone out there and tried to break up the fight. So nothing was going through my mind, obviously.
But while the incident had its lighthearted side, it also had serious consequences, as Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning were suspended for Game 5.
I remember seeing Coach Riley. After the game, he was leaning against the wall and stayed that way because he knew how costly it was going to be.
The Heat were left without their centerpiece, and this time it would be the Knicks who would take advantage. They gained their revenge with a decisive victory, eliminating Miami on their home court.
The Knicks finish off the Miami Heat, ending Miami's season in disappointing fashion.
That was one of the roughest things to digest and deal with the whole summer.
And the Heat would come back strong the following season, capturing the Atlantic Division title and the top seed in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks, meanwhile, had stumbled through the season, ending up with the 8th and final playoff spot. But when the teams met once again in the first round, New York was inspired by the sight of their arch rivals.
Have you seen New York play better all season?
Once more, the Knicks and the Heat would battle to the limit, and the series came down to the last shot.
Miami leads New York 77-76 and 4.5 left in the game.
The irony of the whole thing was that we had them. You see, we had them beaten right there, but I had the worst feeling.
Houston down the lane, running jumper, off the front rim, and in! And the New York Knicks have become the second number 8 team in NBA history to knock off a number 1.
This one obviously hurts us a hell of a lot more than last year, but life in basketball has a lot of suffering in it, and we will suffer this one.
By now, it seemed destined that the Knicks and the Heat would meet in the playoffs, and the next season would bring yet another chapter, with the intensity higher than ever.
Every single possession was life or death. There wasn't anybody taking a step back and exhaling, and that's how both teams went at it.
With the jumper, he puts it in, Patrick Ewing knocks it down!
These teams, so evenly matched, would battle their way toward another gut-wrenching finish. For the 4th straight season, they would play a deciding game. And for the 2nd year in a row, it would come down to one final possession.
The shot, no! Rebound, knocked out of bounds for the 3rd straight year. The Knicks break Miami's heart.
You've seen, two teams go at it for 4 years as hard and as well as anybody, and I think you have to understand that. This was a very unique, matchup, and there's a lot of respect that has been gained, I think, over the years on the part of both teams.
For 4 seasons, the Knicks and Heat had waged a playoff war, and their rivalry would be remembered as one of the fiercest the NBA had ever seen.
Whenever those two teams faced each other, it was always drama. It was always intense. It was some great games.
It was almost as if it was their own little battle, and the winner would come out of the season feeling like, well, okay, we beat the Knicks, or okay, we beat the Heat, and that was good enough.
It might not have been the most artistic, but from an effort standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, where you were not going to give your man anything, and he wasn't going to give you anything, it was some of the best basketball that's ever been played.